Hello, everybody. Nice to see you.
Hello again.
Good evening. Good evening. I make it 6:59 right now, so we will start shortly. Gravity, how do you pronounce your last name?
Gignard.
Gignard.
Yes.
I've been doing it Guinard.
That's all right.
Gignard. Gignard.
Yes.
Gignard. Thank
It's
you.
French.
We have a fairly full agenda tonight, so we'll plow through. Okay, good evening, Corporate Officer. Are we ready to proceed on your end?
Yes, we are, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to the regular council meeting of October 6, 2020. And we acknowledge that we are fortunate to be able to gather on the territory of the Squamish Nation. Tonight, we have all of council present, along with our youth councilor, Gravity Gignard. Closer? Okay, all right. Thank you. I'll call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. and ask for an approval of the agenda. Now, council get the updated agenda. Has council got the one that came out after our Planning and Development Committee meeting? It only reflects the couple decisions, a decision made there. So request approval of the agenda for the meeting. Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor Lumley, thank you. All in favor of adoption of the agenda? Thank you. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes. There's minutes of the regular council meeting September 16, 2020. Motion to adopt these, please. Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor Ludwig, thank you. All in favor of adoption? Thank you very much. And the second set is the minutes of the special council meeting held on September 18, 2020 for adoption. Councillor Ludwig, thank you. Councillor Crowell, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Business arising. And I believe corporate officer, was there something that you had to report out of the action from the minutes? Sorry, CIO. Yeah.
For you, Mr. Mayor, just perhaps on the minutes, there was a reference to the presentation from Graham from the Marine Education Center. Just heard from them yesterday, and Fiona as well, about an upcoming cleanup in the harbor. So we're organizing we got some funding for that from the Pacific Salmon Foundation, and it's a subtitled debris removal. And it starts on October 17th. There will be a shoreline cleanup, and then we're working with staff to arrange for some bins and trucking as the town's contribution to that.
Good.
We'll recycle everything accordingly, and we'll report more on that. And you'll hear back from Graham in a few weeks from now as well.
Thank you. Good. Nice to see that going ahead. Thank you. That would all go up to the, I guess, the SRD dump, I assume, for processing?
Appropriately, some
Good.
materials will go to the recycling center, some to sailors, and
All
then
right.
the rest to the landfill.
Thank you. Delegations and petitions. First delegation this evening is Carol McDermott regarding commercial barges in Gibsons Harbor and a petition to remove the commercial barges from around Gibsons Harbor. I'll invite Carol McDermott to come forward, please.
I'm here.
Ms. McDermott, thank you. Welcome, welcome. Please go ahead. The floor is yours, and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council, for receiving the delegation notices. I applaud you for your Healthy Harbor initiative, and I think our concerns go along with that idea. There's three concerns that we have. Number one is the environment or pollution. Number two is safety and liability. And number 3 is resident use and visitor use for the harbor. As we know, the eelgrass is a very important part of our harbor and its healthy environment. Eelgrass rivals tropical rainforests in the world's richest farmlands, creates a highly structured habitat to stop shifting sands. Eelgrass beds form dense underwater meadows that provide habitat for invertebrates, substrate and diatom and algae growth, and food and cover for a myriad of species. Eelgrass provides food, shelter, and protection from predators for many juvenile fish and shellfish of ecological, commercial, and recreational importance. Seagrass beds play an important role in the life cycles of shellfish, crab, finfish, waterfowl, of particular interest to current efforts to restore native salmonoid populations. Eelgrass has been designated essential fish habitat for juvenile salmonids. The concern that I have and our neighbors have, that the barges that are anchored in our harbor, they emit pollution. They create shadows for the eelgrass to grow, and some of your research is showing that the anchors are damaging the eelgrass. The second concern that I have is safety and the liability of water activities of residents and visitors. I've sent you quite a few pictures of paddleboarding, kayakers, swimmers, generally people enjoying the beautiful Sunshine Coast and our harbor. And with the barges not having their own power, being moved, this can create a problem for people who are under their own manpower. My concern, major concern, is it's only a matter of time before there's a fatal accident with the people enjoying the harbor. The resident use, I think you have photographs. I sent in a petition with photographs.
Yes, we do have them.
In January, again, the eelgrass is an endangered species and it's very important for the health of the harbor. And in January, there was a huge barge that came in, and instead of just anchoring, it was pile driving support into the ocean bed, which is not very good for the ocean bed or the eelgrass or anything else. Let me just look at my photographs here. And then recently, last year, you have photographs of the barges and what they create on, what they hold on top of them, a variety of dangerous goods or argon gas. The concern is any of these things could create an explosion in the harbor, certainly if the gases are heated enough. The dumping of ballast, I have a photograph as well that you also have, where the barge, the one with the crane on it, it looked like it was about to sink because the ballast was offside, was crooked. So they opened the barges, opened the bilge, and just dumped all of this rusty water into the harbor. The last few pictures that you have, you can see it coming from the barge and then coming up to the shore and to the break wall. So our concern and the neighbor concern is this is deemed a recreational harbor, and people are swimming in the harbor, kayaking, boarding. It's just very unhealthy for humans to be in that kind of pollution. And the concern is the pollution, what is it causing to the eelgrass? The research that I've done, I came across a recreational water lease from the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands based on December the 1st, 2008. And the reference lease of 241039 and on, you have it in front of you. It says no person may anchor, moor, tow, push, or allow to stand a barge which is used for commercial purpose or a log boom within the recreational water lease, except in the case of a barge used for the purpose of transiting the RWL on the most direct route to form a berth, beach, or ramp. No person shall place a mooring buoy in the recreational water lease without permission of the town of Gibsons. So I can only assume that the barges that are in the recreational water lease have permission from the town of Gibsons. And if so, is there a contradiction between the health of the harbor, the recreational water usage, and these barges that are clearly commercial endeavors sitting in our harbor? Some of the concerns that we've had with neighbors in discussion is the rust that most of them have on them is clearly a contaminant in the ocean. And should anybody come on board of the barges where it's really rusty, it's clearly a safety issue that if you fall inside a barge and the water is rusty, you can die very quickly. So there are my concerns and the concerns of the neighbors along the bluff. You have the petition from everybody that I spoke to. And we would really like to encourage the council and the town to move forward with a healthy harbor and have the commercial barges removed to a different location.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the information you provided and your presentation. And I can say that this is, as you're probably aware, not a recent issue. I recall dealing with this back in the early part of this century when I was a CAO here, that it's been going on for some time. It is part of our intention for our Healthy Harbor initiative to come up with a solution to this. We also appreciate the impacts in the eelgrass. I wasn't aware of the pollution. Several years ago, we did have a barge removed because of the potential for pollution and contaminants on the barge, but certainly these pictures are an eye-opener for us. So I really appreciate it. Could you tell me how many people did sign the petition? Because we didn't get the names with our copy.
I think there were 12.
Okay.
Everybody I asked except one person signed the petition.
Right, okay, thank you.
There was one other thing I wanted to say. Should one of the barges sink in the harbor, it could create another major problem for the town.
Yeah, that was our concern back several years ago when there was a barge in there that the owner had actually passed away and the barge was left as an orphan. And we actually had to get legislation to have it removed. We had to actually pass a bylaw to declare it a nuisance to have it removed from the harbor. And but we did that at the time, so I recall that. So we will certainly take this into consideration as we go through the process, where this Healthy Harbor process has several steps to it, including looking at the moorages of the pleasure craft on the other side along the front of the harbor. None of those are also licensed to be there, nor do they pay a fee to drop a mooring buoy or anchor in the harbor. So it's part of the big picture that we are currently looking at, along with the study on the harbor that's going on. So I certainly appreciate this. Gives us also some good support and some good documentation of some of the issues that these barges can cause in our area. So thank you for that. Does council have any questions? No, I see none, but thank you very much, Ms. McDermott, and I really appreciate your initiative and the information you provided to us, and hold us accountable as we go forward on this. We do intend to do something about it. There are commercial interests that always kind of pop up and push back, and we just need to find a way to deal with that as well. So we will be working on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for listening to me. We all very much appreciate your consideration. And if there's anything we can do to assist, we're open to helping.
Thank you. We may need that in the future. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our second presentation this evening is from Diane Henley of the Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance regarding the request for the town of Gibsons to adopt a separate wildlife attraction bylaw and accompanying fines. So I invite Diane Henley to come forward. And council, you have copied this information in your agenda package. Diane, welcome. You're still muted, I see, so I'll give you a minute. There, got you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please go ahead and again, a delegation is a delegation. You have 10 minutes.
Actually, if I can just say, Mayor Beamish, is Arena Fox
Oh, okay.
with us? She's going to be doing the presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Irina, are you there? There you are.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
I can hear you, Irina. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
I'd like to start by saying that the Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance has submitted a comprehensive document package to adopt a separate wildlife attractant bylaw with accompanying fine schedule, including a letter to the mayor and council, the actual request outlining mission, goals, objectives, best bylaw practices, and more. We have also submitted our petition letter, signatures, and comments supporting enactment of such a new initiative. Since Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance has started its work back in October of 2019, we have been receiving email inquiries and messages on our Facebook group from concerned residents describing various bear-human situations and asking for help to resolve them. We try to assess the situation and guide people through the best possible way to mitigate the conflict. However, these ongoing interactions made all of us realize how much opportunity we have in our districts to educate residents and to have meaningful food attractant bylaws that can be enforced and therefore help people to coexist with our bears safely, peacefully, and save their lives. We have provided you with a copy of a letter sent to us by a Gibsons resident who finds himself in a constant conflicting situation with a neighbor who attracts bears by providing easy access to a bird feeder. And I'd like to read you one of the latest letters we've just received. Quote, "Good morning. Just to let you know that the dumpster at Seaview Place at the highway in Crucial was trashed by a bear last night. There is garbage all over their driveway, Crucial Road, and at the foot of our property, so-and-so Crucial Road. That apartment building has been a problem in the past years, and they have been told before to make sure it's locked. We would appreciate someone telling them to clean up their mess, including the garbage on our property. Our property often has bear scats, so we're very careful about any attractants and are angry when others are so negligent." Unquote. End of the letter. We can't have a situation anymore where, quote, "they've been told that many times before" is a norm. We need an efficient bylaw that stops any irresponsible behavior right in its tracks. And for that, we need fines and effective enforcement. We need to stop killings of our bears for reasons of poorly managed food attractants and irresponsible behavior. This is what Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance and the residents of Gibsons are hoping to have to changed. And I'd like to add, in light of the latest information, latest news that we have received from our neighbors on the North Shore, and it was on the news yesterday. We have just learned that the property owners on the North Shore could be fined $500 for attracting bears under proposed North Vancouver bylaw. their council and mayor are quite progressive in that regard, and it looks like they're going to be moving along with such a progressive bylaws. And that's just simply because warnings, they simply do not work. And that's basically saying any bear expert, any municipality that has had this ongoing problems for a long time, that is the conclusion, because there have been so much education out there, which we as an alliance, we're not going to stop, of course, but we are looking for something more progressive and more effective to actually battle these ongoing issues. So thank you very much for your attention. That's it for me.
Irina, thank you. And Diane, I have a copy of your letter here that to council, September 25th. And could you tell us a little bit about the Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance?
Yes, our Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance started September 2019 in response to the number of bears that were killed by the Conservation Service due to garbage and attractant issues. Relocation is not an effective management tool in BC at this time. So unfortunately, when bears become attracted to our urban areas and they become habituated and then food conditioned, the method of management is unfortunately to shoot the bear. So our aim, one of our main aims, is to provide education for our residents. And one of the key parts of living in a community with bears is managing garbage and attractants. And as Irina says, there are many examples from other municipalities where they have recently increased fines in an attempt to bring an end to this issue. So our Bear Alliance has a membership of 500 plus people, some very active volunteers, and our main goal is to educate our residents, work with local governments to adopt separate wildlife attractant bylaws, hopefully do corridor studies so that we can provide some travel corridors for our bears that exist in our urban areas. They don't just live in the forest, they live from the water on up to the mountain. And so they do travel through our neighborhoods. We just don't want to keep them in the neighborhood with the attractants. And then we are also vying for policy change with the COS service at the provincial level, and dealing with attractant issues and calling for more fines and enforcements through the COS as well is something that we're hoping to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Irina, I invite council to ask any questions that they have at this time. Councilor D'Andrade?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I actually have a question for you. And thanks, Irina, for your report. I think the town of Gibsons is highly committed in protecting our eco assets, and certainly bears are an incredible eco asset. We know the issues. So is it possible right now, I would like to make a recommendation, move a recommendation. Is it proper to do this?
No, you could bring it up later. We don't deal with resolutions arising out of delegations.
Okay.
So we've had a chance to speak at them. That being said, bears, the protection of wildlife is included as one of the goals in our strategic plan. I'm looking for the specific item where it says that, but the summary plan doesn't have it. But I know that we did add that in there as part of our eco assets. And I think it's as important that council acknowledge this and look at this. So we can, if you like, defer this till later in the meeting if you want to discuss it under new business, and then we can bring this back up.
I appreciate it.
Would you like to move that? Councilor, move that to new business. Seconder for that? Councilor Kroll, thank you. And did you have something you wanted to ask, Councilor Kroll? Oh, sorry, all in favor of moving this to new business for next conversation? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll add this under new business. Councilor Kroll?
I just wanted to thank the group for the delegation. It really is challenging, and I think a lot of it is education. I think there's a, really good opportunity for representatives of the delegation to potentially work with our communications officer. We did a mail out a few weeks ago to everyone in the community, just giving them a heads up about the potential bear problem. And, hopefully, people did pay attention to it, but I noticed there were a lot of them in the dumpster in the recycle bin at the post office. So I think, a little sort of consistent reminders to people. One of the big issues in the community are fruit trees. A lot of people have fruit trees in their yards, and some of these properties are now short-term rentals and rental properties. And the new residents of the properties are just not aware of the potential problem there. And, I've witnessed our neighbors' fruit trees having been smashed down completely by the bear doing a little late harvesting to do some canning for the winter. So it really is a problem, but education hopefully will help remedy a lot of it.
Thank you. Corporate Officer?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify that most recent motion. Did you want it new business at this meeting or as a notice of motion so it would go on the next meeting?
At this meeting, we discussed it. We could just decide what we want to do with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. So thank you, Diane and Irina. We will give council a chance to think about this through the course of the meeting, and then it will be back up and just for referral later on in the meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next part of our meeting is item 6, the inquiries, and this inquiry opportunity is for any item that is on the agenda this evening for discussion, with the exception of the public hearing that we held this evening on Davis Bay and Poplar Road. We can't have a further discussion about that, so that it will be coming up later in the meeting. So any other inquiries, please make yourself known to the corporate officer, and she'll open the door for you. I see George Smith. George, you're still muted on my screen. Thank you. You're there.
Hi, shall I start?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I've been on the board of the Friends of Gospel Rock for around 30 years or so. And I want to say that we appreciate the town agreeing to protect 40% of the land 7 years ago. And this was enshrined in the OCP. The developer agreed to work with the Land Conservancy and the Sunshine Coast Conservation Association to place a protective covenant on the land before they start to develop the property. This agreement was made 2 years ago. A year ago, all parties agreed to a draft covenant agreement, yet the land is still not yet protected. My question is, why is the town allowing development to start on Gospel Rock before the land is protected? And why hasn't the town enforced the agreement to register a protective covenant on this land at this point? Thank you for offering me the opportunity to make a question.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Why don't we try to answer that? I'll go to the CAO or Director of Planning. Where are we? Well, where are we with this right now? I think it's the question.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. So right now we are still in the subdivision approval stage of the project. It hasn't been subdivided yet. So they are not proceeding with any development at this time. We're still working through everything required as part of the conditions of subdivision. So we're not letting them proceed without meeting the terms and the requirements in place.
Okay. So the covenant itself hasn't been registered, but neither is anything happening, is what you're saying. Yeah.
That's right. The covenant hasn't been registered. The DPs are not issued. the park dedications have not been provided. There's a lot that has to happen for this development, and it's still one parcel right now.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Smith, does that answer your question right now?
No, but thanks for the effort. The
But
question,
I guess the question is not at that stage of development that the covenants would be registered in terms of the development permits and development process. They'll be initiated by the application from the developer to proceed. Right now, they're just in that subdivision stage, which is a preliminary process to creating land for development purposes.
yeah, I still don't understand why the town can't proceed with the creation of the covenant.
Well, later on this evening, we're probably going to be changing that covenant so that in terms of the discussion relative to the trail that's proposed to go through the property.
Through the sensitive land part of the property,
That's correct. Yes.
which I truly hope that the town makes sure that they honor the spirit of the covenant.
Director of Planning, you see your back.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was just going to add that the speed of development is sort of led by the developer. So if they want to finalize the subdivision, if they're going to phase it, if they're going to take it bite-sized pieces at a time, they're going to do it at the speed that they're going to take it at. So this is their development to execute. We have the terms and conditions in place. They have to meet them because they were approved by council. It's in the development agreement between the town and the developer. So they will, when they're ready to proceed to the next step, then they'll have to meet those terms and conditions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. George, that's all I can do for you right now.
Okay, thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah. Other inquiries? Mr. Stowe, I see you. And you're muted. You're still muted, Mr. Stowe. There you are.
I'm wondering whether anyone from the town has actually been up to Block 7 this weekend, because I heard excavators running over the weekend. I took a look over the north fence yesterday, and I can see that they appear to have started digging out a foundation for the apartment block they're proposing.
Director of Planning, do we know what's happening up there, or?
Thank you, Mayor. They have advised that they'd like to start tree cutting and earthworks, but they've been told that they can't start until they've got their development permits in place, and we need to have a site meeting before they take any more trees down or before they begin earthworks. So that's the last of the conversation. They're waiting for a site meeting because they want their development permits issued. They haven't been issued yet, so they shouldn't be doing any works, but I'll check on that.
Thank you, Mr. Stowe. Yeah, we'll follow up on that. Okay, are there any further questions? Mr. Delaney.
Yes, this is a question for Councillor Kroll. His statement before that there are short-term rentals that are leaving garbage out for bears. I'd appreciate it if he could actually give the addresses and the locations and how he had this information. And in the event that he is not able to do that, I'd ask him to withdraw his comment, please. Could you do that, please, Councillor Kroll?
I could refer you to the presentation by the Bear Alliance. They actually refer to that in their presentation, Mr. Delaney, with short-term rentals leaving garbage.
And at what address was it?
They don't provide the addresses. that would be blacked out in any event.
Okay,
Yeah.
so with the bylaw that is in place now,
Yeah.
and if that address is licensed, then somebody should do something about it. It should be addressed. It shouldn't be just a generic referral. So it should be enforced.
They have in their letter, it says that a neighbor who leaves, Airbnb owner who doesn't live on site, whose guests leave garbage in an accessible container, subsequently attracting bears to the area, and witnessed on numerous occasions. So that was their comment. What Mr. Cole may have seen and where he may have seen it, that would be up to him to comment on. So thank you, Mr. Delaney. Okay, any other, oh, Suzanne Singer, okay. Welcome.
I'm just not seeing myself in the videos. I'm
I
wondering,
can see you.
you can see me. All right. All right. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I want to talk about item 12.1, Gospel Road Multi-Use Trail, and the Gower Point Road safety issue as well. If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to follow up on the question that George had and then ask my own, because we just heard from the planner that the DPAs aren't issued yet. And so we don't have anything to worry about with the covenant. But, we know that there's excavations going on and the land is being cleared up top. We also know that, I have emails exchanged with town staff indicating that issuance of the development permits is basically imminent. So that doesn't really, help answer the question of why are we moving forward with these covenants, or pardon me, with these permits prior to, addressing these covenants. And I have sent a number of emails on behalf of the Sunshine Coast Conservation Association, where I'm a director on the board, raising this issue that the town has a legally binding agreement with this owner that says, you will ensure that these covenants are established prior to phase one development, phase one subdivision development at this on block 7. So, that answer, it's just not good enough. So that's that. And my question is twofold. First, it is, does council understand? So you all got the email that I sent to you from the SCCA today, sort of laying this all out and explaining what the issues are for us. So I would like to know whether everyone on council understands why the SCCA feels that the recommendations at the end of the agenda tonight need to be strengthened. And, if you need any clarity on that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have, since we haven't had a staff report on this, even though you asked for one 5 months ago. And then the second part of my question is, will council please consider the amendments that we've suggested? Because the recommendations as written, they won't resolve this issue. And, after 35 years of fighting and finally getting, the plan into the OCP in 2013, and then finally getting a developer who's totally willing to protect this land and willing to work together with us, we just shouldn't be at this place. So we need to nail this down. And I'm just wondering whether you're on the same page that we're on to get this protection just dealt with.
Well, thank you. I believe all of council got your email today, and when this item comes up at the under new business, the information you provided will be considered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just, are there questions, Mayor Beamish? Is it appropriate to say, we're willing to answer?
I have no questions at this time. Councillor Lumley does so. Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, I'm just hoping a representative, whether it's you or who it might be, just sticks around until that discussion at the end of this meeting. So if there's any clarification at that time, I mean, it's a good inquiry, but I think once we get into it, and I don't want to take too much time in the inquiries because I'd like to get to that last part of the meeting. And I will extend the meeting to get to it. This is one thing that I would do, but if one of you could stick around for clarification, I think that would serve council best. So that's what I would hope for.
Okay, I will. And just to let you know, we did, Tori Archer couldn't make the meeting tonight. She's in the field, so she just couldn't make it. She's in transit. So I will definitely stick around, and I think there are a few others who will too.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your inquiry. I think our 10 minutes of inquiries is up at this time. Is there anybody else there that feels like they haven't had a chance to say their piece? Seeing nobody new coming forward, I will thank everybody for their inquiries. And oh, Mr. Bowman, yes. Mr. Bowman, please, you're still muted. Dan, you're on mute. There you are. Yeah. You can speak, Dan. I see you there. Okay, well, perhaps later in the meeting, Dan, something may be wrong with your computer, or you're not getting through to us. So we'll move on, and perhaps later in the meeting. Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to committee reports. Several sets of minutes from the Public Art Advisory Committee. Council recalls that this committee was initially appointed this spring, approved last fall, appointed this spring. We have had 4 meetings. Our CIO is our support for this meeting. He stands by and is available to us. And essentially the issues that we dealt with have been done a public art inventory, which I'm more than pleased to share with anybody in the town. We've taken pictures and written summaries of the art information as much as we know of it. We've had several meetings discussing what is public art, the importance of public art, and then focused on the Wine Garden Park mural, as you'll see from the one of the sets of minutes there. And the condition of the mural was put on place there in 2002, and it is put on concrete, which is holding up a sizable amount of real estate. And we know that the aquifer is running behind that, because it does come down into the underneath there where that pond is. That's aquifer water. And the concrete is probably just not the right medium to put a painting on that's going to last indefinitely. So that the proposal that you'll see in one of the recommendations there is that the concrete wall be investigated, and I believe that staff has done that already, and that the mural be painted over, and further that the further, and I'm actually covering several sets of minutes, but the final one deals with the making it a priority as a public art installation to be done in a different way, probably. And the concept there would be to probably create panels that would be apart from the wall, but maybe mounted about an inch or a half an inch off the wall, so that concrete doesn't impact the panels, and so that and we look for another opportunity for some artwork to go in that place. So that's where we are basically as a committee. We have redrafted the public art policy. Unfortunately, I didn't get a resolution to present that to council, so I'll get that and bring it back, and it identifies just some changes to the policy are suggested, including opportunities for funding of public art in the community, which are consistent with other communities in the way that public art is funded. We do have a small public art reserve that is continuing to grow, but it's not a big reserve by any means. It's certainly not a reserve of the nature that could cover this project off. So I only go into that because there were some questions about about it. We did have terms of reference and a policy that establishes the committee. We recently had a resignation from the committee, and so we will be looking to go out and ask council to advertise for another member to be appointed to the committee. So that being said, if you have any questions in general, but this committee as a committee, and as a committee, it reports to council. And so the minutes of the Public Art Advisory Committee, taking them one at a time, unless anybody has any general questions that talk about what the committee is and who we are and what we do. But generally the names of the people are all in the minutes, and you see that. So the first one is 7.11, and that's the Public Art Advisory Committee meeting of May 13th, and a recommendation that be received. Councillor Crowell, Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. Any questions about that? All in favor of receipt? Sorry, Councillor Ladwig, yeah.
Thanks, Mayor Beamish. I'm just trying to figure out where to jump in with my comments and questions, but I don't, there's so much. I'm happy to receive it all, but I do want to.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's receive, and then again we can further discuss.
Okay.
Okay. So motion, all in favor of receipt? Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's received. And then the May 27th, again motion receive. All in favor of receipt? Oh, sorry, Councillor Crowell, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor of receipt? Thank you. Keep me up. Now the 7.3 June 10th, again motion to receive. Okay, Councillor Crowell, Councillor Ladwig, in favor of receipt. Okay, there's a recommendation there, and that was staff investigate the condition of the concrete wall below the bus stop at Weingarten Park and determine if repairs are required and if the mural should be removed and or painted over. Yeah, Councillor D'Andrade, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just trying to understand, because this motion talks about determine if repairs are required, and the next motion talks about the replacement of the mural. So I'm trying to understand.
This happened weeks later, but at that time, the report we had from one member of the committee indicated that he had talked to Train Contracting, and that Dennis had indicated maybe the wall, there was a problem. That was further investigated, I believe, with the CAO and the I'm not sure, CAO, if there was anybody with you or you had somebody go down and look at it, and we determined that it was not an unsafe situation. So that was investigated at the time. Otherwise, it would come forward to you. CAO, have you comment?
Pardon me, got me having a bite. So we did follow up with that. It was Tyler and Daniel that attended to that, just confirming that the wall itself is inspected on a regular basis from a asset management perspective, as it's securing a retaining wall, basically. But we had never actually looked at it from, is it a solid place to put a painting on and will it last? I think that, so the separating those two parts. So we did inspect it, we were comfortable with it. It's on our asset management list of assets, and but it's not to deal with how appropriate it is for painting as much as it is the retaining wall.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So whenever something like that comes up, and when somebody brings to the attention something might be a safety issue or an infrastructure issue, the immediate response was to ask the CAO to say, look, better take a look at that sort of thing. So, and that was done. But because it's a recommendation in the minutes, I'd like it to be moved and seconded. So somebody care to move that, or Councillor Crowell, second? I'll second it. Okay, seconded. All in favor of inspecting the wall and okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so that's just, it's in the past, it was done. The next minutes to July 23rd, again, motion to receive the minutes. And Councillor Crowell, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor of receipt? Thank you. Received. And the final sets of minutes is from, I guess that going back into that 4.2 7.42, the recommendation is that the mural be replaced as a first public art priority. Primarily, the condition of the mural is very poor. For those of you who might have had a chance to go over and take a look at it, having received the agenda package and rushed over there to see what we're talking about. It's in very poor condition. And it's not a good example for us to have a piece of public art deteriorate in that way. It's not respectful to the artist. It's not respectful to the artwork. So that at this point in time, the artist is nowhere around. I've tried to contact him. There was a website on there. I was here when everything happened. I was here when that was done in 2002. Money was raised locally, privately. The artist happened to be here for the summer, a young fellow from Scotland, as I recall, and he enlisted a few local people to help him paint. They had a photograph, and that's where it's painted from. And but the website that's there and the telephone number that's there, and his name does not come up on the internet either. So I did try to locate him to discuss the piece. So he is not around. The condition of it is very poor and needs to be scraped off and in some areas and painted over. And I think that will give us a fresh canvas to start with. But it's also a prominent location. And I think it's a location that warrants continuing to be a public art location. And the committee identifies that as the first priority in terms of going forward to the dealing with public art, is to replace that mural and look at probably in 2021 going through a public art process. That process is described in the policy. It's the existing policy has a process, and the new policy just reinforces that. And that the council requests advice from the Public Art Committee on a budget and process in respect to replacing the existing mural. And then that would be if council so directs, then the committee would come forward with an idea of the process and the budget, how much it would cost, and the process of going out to request once the budget's in place, that artists step forward and submit proposals and redo that piece at that location. So, the council, I mean, I would move the recommendation that replacement of mural and public art be the first public art priority, and the council request advice from the Public Art Advisory Committee on budget and process in respect to replacing the existing mural. I would move that. Seconded, Councilor D'Andrade. Seconded. Discussion. Any discussion? Councilor Ladwig. Yeah. You're muted. Yeah.
Oh, thank
There
you.
you go. Yeah.
I'm really pleased to see this committee's getting together. Having an art committee was actually on my platform when I ran for council, so I'm really pleased to see this happening. And I know we're all busy and everyone's doing their best, so this is not a criticism of anyone. I wonder if there's an opportunity, and maybe I missed it. I believe I was away at the meeting where the selection process for the candidates took place, so maybe I missed it, and I apologize. It's on me if I have. But I would like to see the policy and have more discussion about the terms of reference and the role of this committee before we start talking about permanent installations. And I say that because, and just being personally, I had a very different vision for what an arts committee could do for Gibsons. Yeah. My vision was, and I know it's just mine, but I'd like a forum to discuss it, was, for a committee to act very similarly to what, say, a board of directors for the Gibsons Public Art Gallery, excuse me, performs, where instead of their gallery being a four-walled building, their gallery is Gibson's public space, and that once a year, they create a theme and they put out a call for proposals, and we invite artists from all over the Sunshine Coast to put out art installations in the community for a year, and then we advertise that theme or that art walk on Tourism BC.
And could well happen. That could well be part of the process. Yeah.
Totally. And so I'm looking to have that conversation before we start talking about a permanent installation. That's all.
Well, I think you've already got permanent installations. You've got this piece right there, which is deteriorated, and you've got George Gibson statue. You've got a number of permanent installations in town that exist. So the idea was to say, okay, how can we work around that with the community? and look at other opportunities. I mean, the opportunities up at Gospel Rock, for example. I know that the developers there were looking at installing some artwork, and having a consultant with a public art committee could be an advantage to them. Everybody who applied was appointed to the public art committee, so it wasn't a selection process; it was an appointment process ultimately. And the policy at that time, it was, well, I mean, we town has always had a public art policy, and it's on the website. What we're recommending is some tweaks to it, including how funding for public art could be developed. So that will come forward to you as soon as I get a recommendation, proper resolution from the committee to bring that policy forward to council for amendment and updating.
Okay, so that's great. I'm just saying I would like to do that work before we start recommending
Sure.
staff and time on,
Sure.
on doing this. I'd like to defer this decision is all I'm saying, and have the policy in terms of reference brought to council for discussion first.
Sure. Yeah. I think that public art is always difficult.
Yeah.
And what artists might consider to be, and I mean, there is a terms of reference, and actually the what the committee is doing is totally in keeping with the existing policy. The tweaking of the policy is to say how public art could be funded and brought forward, sort of thing.
Well, but as a counselor, I'd like an opportunity to maybe add my own tweaks to that policy. I mean,
And you will. It will come to you. That's the thing. That's in order to get it in front of you, we have to have ultimately presented to you, sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So that and we will. I just didn't get a resolution for that, sort of thing. But
okay, so I'm going to defer on this one because I that's my recommendation or motion is that we defer this decision until we have.
You have to defer to a date. Future.
Sorry?
If your motion to defer is to a time, a place in November.
Well, until after this policy, until after we have the policy in terms of reference, come to council for a full discussion.
Okay. Yeah. Corporate officer.
I was just going to say the motion, it's a motion to postpone in the procedure bylaw, and it does require a date. Otherwise, it's postponed indefinitely. I could alternately recommend calling the vote, and then if this doesn't go through, it can be brought back at a later time.
Whatever you guys recommend, I'm just saying I want to see the policy in terms of reference first. So however, whatever works best. I don't know people's timelines.
All of this is dependent upon coming back to council, including this recommendation. So thanks. Councillor Lumley.
Maybe Councillor Ladwig, maybe it can just be that you could add to this instead of deferring this. I don't think there's anything to defer. Like, I'm sorry if maybe I misunderstood, but the committee's suggesting that we replace this piece of art, right? This public piece of art, and that the advisory committee is going to come back to council and give us ideas and costs. I don't know if
so my issue is I would rather see us move into rotational art shows rather than a permanent installation. So if they're going to give us the quote on a permanent installation, I want a discussion on that.
That's fine, but like we could move it forward because they've had 3 meetings, and like just deferring it. Sometimes when people volunteer and they go on these committees and stuff, and they meet 3 times, and somebody's already resigned, like done all this work, and then you're going, hey, you know what? I'm just going to set this aside. So in the interest of the public people that are volunteering to be on this committee, I would say I would like think that we would probably all agree with this, but maybe add that you want to do I don't know if this is possible, but you could add something to say at the same time this comes back, we could also look at reviewing the terms of reference. Like, I mean, these guys are going to go ahead and it's just they're giving us advice. We get to vote on this. Like, they could come to us and you could say, no, I don't agree with that at all. So I don't know why deferring it would be. I could be completely wrong. I just don't see why deferring it. I think that would be like telling all these people that met 3 times already that their work, we're just going to put it aside. I think I'd rather go forward with it, and then we'll see what happens, and then work with the terms of reference at the same time. That's all I'm thinking. So.
Yeah, no, I understand. I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah, we could, I could add and further that the policy in terms of reference comes back to council for further input. Sorry.
That's great. No, that's good, because it's my mistake that it's not here because I didn't get a resolution. But if council wants to add a resolution to say that to bring it forward, then that saves me actually having to get the resolution from the committee.
Okay, so
we do have draft policy.
Officers.
Corporate officers got the draft policy.
I was just going to say that would require a motion to amend that would then need to be seconded and then voted on.
Okay, yeah. Or it could be a separate motion, could it not? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll make a separate motion. Let's deal with the one that's on the table right now, which is this one. I wish we could amend it to say that
you can,
as long as Mayor Beamish, she talk to the committee and let them know what I'm thinking. I'm worried about setting up expectations. If they're going to put in this work into providing a quote, and I'm not going to support a permanent installation at this time. So, but whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Nothing will happen in the short term.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I'll call the question, and all in favor of these resolutions coming forward. Councillor Kroll. Okay. So that's approved. Now, Councillor Ladwig, your resolution.
My resolution is, and further that the
public art policy, Gibsons public art
policy and the terms of reference for the committee comes back to council for further discussion, or a fulsome discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
On the role of the committee.
Councillor Kroll seconded it. All in favor?
Discussion.
No, discussion. Sorry, discussion. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Should it come back to council, or should it go to the planning and development committee?
Committee comes to committee, and unfortunately, yeah.
Committee comes to council.
Committee comes to council because this is a committee. Yeah. So it comes to council. So that and they do have there is a draft policy that they've looked at and recommend. It's just a draft, redrafting of some of the changes in the existing policy. So. Okay, so requested come forward to council, and was moved and seconded moved by Councilor Ladwig, seconded by Councilor Kroll. Further discussion? All in favor? Okay, so I'll put that on the agenda to come back to council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. So, the committee of the whole meeting of September 15, 2020, recommendations and minutes be received. Councilor Kroll, Councilor Diendrad, all in favor of receipt? Thank you, received. And Gabriel Lord, Transportation Planning Technician, South Coast Region, that a letter be sent to the Transportation Infrastructure acknowledging receipt and highlighting areas in the report that need to be addressed. That was a recommendation coming out of the committee of the whole. Somebody care to move that? Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, thank you. Discussion. All in favor? Thank you. Percent. Planning and Development Committee meeting October 6, 2020. Today's recommendation from today that the Sunshine Coast Housing Needs Assessment report be endorsed, and the staff report back with policy options based on the results of the Sunshine Coast Housing Needs Assessment report and that addresses future housing needs. Councilor Diendrad, Councilor Kroll, discussion on that. All in favor? Thank you. It's approved. Administration reports. I'm going to request that right now that all of the administration reports and correspondence be received. Move Councilor Kroll, Councilor Diendrad, all in favor of that? Thank you. Okay, that's all received. So moving on, then we'll go to the Director of Planning and Communications, Really Storn, her survey results.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. So this report presents the results of the survey that the town put out to solicit feedback on the proposed sale of a portion of Lot 23 to the owners of the adjacent Stonehurst property. The Stonehurst property owners approached council in the spring with a development proposal based on 4 objectives: to improve Inglis Park, to preserve Stonehurst, to maintain public parking, and to increase housing. To understand the financial contribution, the town requested a property valuation, which was completed. The owners of Stonehurst are proposing to purchase the upper portion of lot 23 for an appraised value of $725,000. Before engaging in further discussion about the sale of the land, council decided to seek public input on the proposal through an online survey. The objective of the survey was to provide the public with a high-level overview of the proposal and the potential sale of a portion of lot 23 and solicit feedback. The report outlines 2 options for council's consideration. Option 1 essentially is the decision to proceed. So if council would like to proceed with the proposal, council would need to authorize the development applications for the property and support the sale in principle, subject to zoning approvals. This would direct staff to take an application through the zoning and consultation process. This would open up more details to the public and allow specific feedback on the development proposal. Option 2 would be if council does not want to proceed with the sale of the land and rejects the proposal. So this should council reject the sale of a portion of the lot, the owner of Stonehurst would need to come up with a new plan. So I'll pass the floor over to Elizabeth, our communications coordinator, to speak to the outcomes of the survey.
Thanks, Leslie Ann. The Lot 23 survey was posted on the town's website on July 29th and closed on September 4th. During this time, the project information and survey were promoted through multiple sources, including a postcard, which was mailed to most town residences, multiple social media posts, an article in the Coast Reporter, and an article in the Local. In total, 196 people completed the 4-question survey. The first question was, do you live in the town of Gibsons? 195 people responded to this question, with 93% stating that they lived in the town of Gibsons and 7% saying they do not. The second survey question was, have you read the background about this project? And 100% of the respondents confirmed that they had read the background information. Question 3 was, do you think council should consider the request to purchase the identified portion of lot 23? 195 people responded to this question. Of those, 129 people, or 66%, answered yes, council should consider the request, and 66 people, or 34%, answered no. Some of the common reasons that people gave for supporting consideration of the request included the improvement of the park space and the official designation of the park, the preservation of Stonehurst, the maintenance or possible increase of parking spaces, a boost in tourism, increased housing, better overall use of a currently underutilized space, and an increased tax base. Several of the respondents who said yes to council considering the proposal did qualify their support by saying that they were open to consideration of the proposal as it was presented on the website, and or saying that it was difficult to know for sure whether they supported the proposal without seeing a more detailed site drawing. Other frequent comments from people who generally supported the proposal included that the town should make Stonehurst a municipal heritage site or take more steps to protect it further. Traffic management around the site should be a priority. The height of the residences should be kept to a maximum of 4 stories and preferably 3. Some affordable housing should be included in the project, and tree preservation should be a priority. 66 people, or 34% of the respondents, were generally opposed to council considering the sale of the lot. Common reasons for opposition included too much traffic in the area as it is, concern that much needed parking will not be maintained, the benefits to the developer outweigh the benefits to citizens, the price being offered for the property is too low, the development as proposed will be too crowded, public assets should not be sold under any circumstances, and concern that green space and public space will be reduced. The last survey question was, if the land is sold, how would you prefer the resulting funds to be spent? 152 people responded to this question and 44 skipped it. 4 spending options were provided on the survey, and respondents were able to select as many of those options as they preferred. Of those, 95 people, or 63%, said they would prefer any realized funds to be spent on a contribution to the capital reserve to fund existing or future infrastructure needs. 50 people, or 33%, said they would like any realized funds to be spent on a contribution to the policing reserve. And 46 people, or 30%, each selected options 3 and 4, which were respectively a contribution to affordable housing and a contribution to support other council initiatives. Other suggestions for the funds, which were received from multiple respondents, included creating more public parks or green spaces, creating more family-friendly spaces such as a skate park or play space, beautification of Lower Gibsons, or creating more parking in Lower Gibsons. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Director of Planning, is there anything further?
Sorry, no, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Well, Council, over to you. I trust you've all had an opportunity to read the report and read some of the comments, and very interesting process gone through there without, but certainly eliciting comment from the community. What you wish. We have 2 options presented to us. One is that we indicate that we are prepared to entertain the sale. It's not a commitment to sell, it's an entertain the sale subject to our agreeing with the project and the rezoning going through and everything else being approved. Or we say thank you and indicate that we are not prepared to move forward with the sale of the property at this time. So, Councillor Ladwig.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say that I thought it was a really good process. I'm really glad that we took that survey route. I thought we, got a lot of really interesting feedback. So I'm glad we took that approach. I was really pleased to see how supportive people were of preserving Stonehurst and what significant influence that had on people's decision-making to support the sale of this land or not. And I was also really pleased with the percentage of people that supported it. So I feel quite good about the results of the survey. So I personally support moving forward. The one thing, just to clarify, just one last thing. Parking has always been a big issue for me. I know we've clarified that in the dialogue we've had so far with the developer. Just want to keep that on the table and make sure we emphasize how important that is, as that one individual said. But other than that, I support going forward.
Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with what Illyria said. I think the results from the survey, I was quite impressed by just the level of intelligence and the thought that people put into their answers. Mm-hmm. They all seemed like genuine and, like I said, in like kind of intelligent responses to potential questions. And I think I'd agree with the first part, because I think a lot of the concerns that some people might have will be answered by opening it up to the public, as far as like green space, because, I mean, if they saw it, the potential development, of course, the developments itself, but they kind of see that the parking and the green space thing will be more than adequately, taken care of, I guess, at least at first blush with this developer. So yeah, I'd like it to open it up. I think we should pursue it and open up to the public and get more feedback. But yeah, I was quite encouraged by, again, just the level of I think when you opened it up, which was a great idea. I think people really took on they put the town hat on and responded to it in a way that they cared about the town, not just personal interests or anything that, anti-development. It was more intelligent, and I was quite impressed by it. So yeah, I think the first, I would agree with Councillor Ladwig.
Councillor Kroll?
I'm just going to agree with pretty well what everyone else has said, but sort of the thing that Councillor Ladwig brought up, which I think is really important, was the method that this was dealt with, that, we took the actual development off the table and just dealt with the prime question of, would you consider selling this property or a portion of it? So I think it was a positive direction to move in. And I'd certainly, I'm more than willing to, proceed with the first option, and I'd be happy to make that motion.
Councillor Dindrad?
Thank you. Agree. I don't have too much to say on top of what every councillor said. I think what I'm looking forward at this point is trying to understand if there is room. Many times we do the public hearing at the end. We pass the first, the second, and the third. But because the public has not seen any design at this point, and even for council, we saw some very rough sketch. And in order to honor this interactive process with the public, given that is public land, I wonder if there is room, and if this is the right process, to bring the public hearing very soon for public input, so we can have better feedback instead of approving and leaving for the last to hear from the public. Because there are many good suggestions, there are many concerns, and so on the first report, I would also like the staff to respond some of the concerns, but I think if we have a public hearing very soon in the process, we can have feedback, and the developer could address this as soon as possible, and don't have too many don't create expectation both to the developer and for the public.
I believe I know what the Director of Planning is going to say, but a public hearing is actually the legislative process at a certain time in the procedure. That being said, I suspect a public information meeting being held by the proponents might be what you're looking for. So, Director of Planning?
Mayor, yes. So we typically do a public information meeting in advance of the public hearing to share the information with the public and get the information out so that they're prepared for the hearing. We could bump the public hearing after first reading. It is early in the process. So we typically would do it after second reading. So it just draws out the process a little bit longer, and there is a risk of new information coming in and having to hold a second public hearing. So we would prefer the process to engage the public in a way that's not a statutory public hearing process.
Yeah. Councilor Dindrad again.
I appreciate. I think I understand. Yes, the process. I think what I'm looking forward is to have a robust feedback from the public before the development proceeds. So that's what I'm looking for. So I believe the first information, the information meeting. I understand the challenges with COVID, but I believe the public responded well. So I'm positive that it would be successful, and I look forward.
Question I have, the corporate officer, is one of going through, because we are dealing with public land here, at what point do we need to give notice of disposition to the public? Is that an early stage in a process? Should we do it in the context of entering into a option to purchase agreement with the owner, which is be subject to the rezoning and all those things, but at least we can give that notice? Or do we just carry on, then we wait right to the end and then pop the notice of disposition.
Typically, the notice of disposition would be published at the point the sale would proceed. In this instance, because it would be subject to the zoning and OCP amendments, that would be if those go through. So if those bylaws are adopted.
Yeah, I think it's very important we kind of hit that right moment, because we don't want to also give the put the developer in an awkward spot. So the right time of putting that notice of disposition out there is and be done. So yeah. Councillor Guignard, do you have anything to contribute?
I think that it's well, first of all, I think it's great that you guys, all the survey that you did in the community. It's great seeing that there was so much input, because, well, I mean, there was a fair bit of input, and I know the people who put in that input and took the time to read it and did this survey, that they're the ones who really care a lot about this decision. So it's great to see that. And in terms of whether you should go forward with it, I think that I don't have any, I think that it sounds like a lot of people want it to, like, the majority want the sale to happen. So I don't know, I just, based off of what the community wants, I think that that's a good thing to do. But yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. The idea of protecting Stonehurst is something, if we had it in our power to protect Stonehurst, independently of all this, it would have been done a long time ago. The challenge with any heritage protection is that it has to be agreed to by the owner. It's not something you can impose, so that and there's not a lot of incentive for an owner to enter into heritage protection, because there's a lot of costs associated with keeping a building maintained and upgraded to the same standard that it currently exists without addition. So it's one of those real challenges you have with heritage is how you offer that protection. Councillor Lumley?
Again, I'm just going to reiterate that by opening it up to the public will see the developer's intentions for Stonehurst. And I mean, in most parts, from what I've read and understand, is like going down the heritage road would probably be the wrong way. And I'm sure any developer wouldn't want to go there, just because it really inhibits development. But from what he's proposed, I don't see why anybody wouldn't be happy with what he's proposed, which was to restore it. So anyway, yeah, again, open it up.
Okay, well, I will entertain a motion. If somebody would like to move one of those two. Councillor, what are you moving? Councillor Kroll?
The first recommendation of staff that
the council authorize development applications for an OCP and zoning amendment on lot 23. Support the principle of selling lot 23 to facilitate the development of proposals subject to zoning approvals. Seconded, Councillor Lumley. Further discussion. One thing I would like to see, and it could be part of this next resolution, and that is that in this process, we update the appraisal. I think the appraisal should be as of a date as close to the sale transaction as possible to reflect the current values. And sometimes if this appraisal is a year old by the time we get there, things could have changed. And I think the appraisal should reflect the current value of the property as it when it's sold, not what it was a year ago. So would be my suggestion. We can discuss that another time. So then Councillor Dintrad first.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also interested, perhaps I would like to make a motion that in the meantime as well, if possible, staff try to understand forms of heritage, like not necessarily a covenant, I'm not sure, but ensure that the heritage, the preservation, it would be like a permanent, if possible. So I'm sure, I know there are designations at the federal level. I don't understand necessarily at this point if there's a provincial, or just at the city, but I would like to staff to investigate options for the preservation of the heritage site.
Before we get too far down the rabbit trail, can we perhaps we better deal with the motions on the table? And
I'm sorry.
that is to authorize development application. So Councillor Crowell, you were the mover. You have something to say?
Well, there was just something I wanted to, if it's possible to add, because there wasn't a figure that was offered up, that it not be less than the figure that was previously offered. Because if the market has changed,
yeah,
in a negative sense, we could end up losing what we put out to the public as an agreed amount for the property. So
yeah,
I think that that number has to be protected. And, you know, if an appraisal comes in higher, so be it. But we don't want to slide backwards.
Okay, yeah, I think that's probably a wise idea to include that in, because it also clarifies the resolution to be very specific. So that and the price of that, could somebody remind me? Is it 700 and
750,000, I thought.
50?
725.
745. So
25.
So subject to selling a portion of lot 23 at a price not less than $745,000 to facilitate the development of proposals subject to zoning approvals. Does that meet your requirement, Councillor Crowell?
Well, if you want to proceed with a second market appraisal for the property, fine, but whatever that appraisal comes in at, we should not sell the property for less than the amount that was off, you know, we conveyed to public we were going to receive for it.
Yeah. Councillor Lumley, you're the mover.
Yeah,
Do you agree with that amendment?
I think, yeah, you spoke right, except it's 725, not 745, but yeah, put it in there. That's what they already offered, right? So
If it's 725, that's the number.
no less. Yeah, you said no less.
Yeah, yes, great. Councillor, sorry, corporate officer?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, but if this has been moved and seconded, so I need a proper motion to.
Okay, no friendly amendments. Okay, Councillor Crowell, would you propose an amendment to the to your motion?
Okay, so I would make a motion.
We have to defeat the first one, no?
No, sorry, you can, we can do it this way. You got the first one on the table, and you can add that the sale price be not less than $725,000.
Or I think what Councillor Crowell's saying was that 725 or whichever is the greater of another assessment. Isn't that what you're saying?
Yeah.
At least 725, but it's could be more, like based on another assessment. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Corporate officer?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, there's two options at this point because it's been moved and seconded as is. So you can put a motion to amend on the table and vote on it that would change the existing motion, or you can pass this one and then pass another motion that speaks to that.
Yeah, I think they'd like to see it all being done in one favor. So if we can do an amendment to this motion, so how would you suggest an amendment read, corporate officer, since you're?
I think as you read it out, that would be fine. I just need it moved and seconded and then voted on that would be the amendment.
Amendment, and that's the okay. So that was the one of the.
I made the amendment.
Yeah, it would be the addition, with the addition that the sale price be not less than $725,000 or the higher value of a current appraisal prior to sale. How does that sound? Or the higher value of an updated appraisal prior to sale. Okay. Councillor Crowell?
I'll move that.
You move the amendment. Council Adwick second the amendment. Discussion on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? Okay. Okay, call the motion. All in favor of the motion as amended? Councilor Kroll, okay, thank you. Okay, I think we got something there. Thank you, and thank you, staff. Thank you, corporate officer and director of communications. It was an interesting exercise, one we haven't done. Councilor Diandrad, you have another resolution? Yes. Yeah.
Yes, so my proposal is that we direct staff to bring back some alternatives for the preservation of Stonehurst.
Yeah, either by covenant or by, yeah, investigate options.
Yes.
Investigate options for the preservation of Stonehurst.
Because I understand, for example, I know if it's at a federal level, we can get grants.
Yeah.
You know, the owner or whatever, but I don't understand the repercussions. So I would like just to hear all the possible options.
CAO.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, if we just confirm, typically we would address that in the staff report as we process the development. Are you anticipating a separate report before that, or as we go through the process? Because I'm quite certain we'll need to speak with the owner, see what their issues or concerns are, what they're proposing, and then come back with a understanding that you need clarification on this matter, as your resolution says. But if it works for council, then we prefer to address it all as we're working through the application per se. Just as a suggestion, or to clarify which one you prefer.
Councilor Lumley, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just suggest, this is what I suggest. Don't put it in staff's hands at this point. I would suggest that maybe if Councilor Diandrad wants to investigate heritage sites and stuff like that. I mean, I've gone through this process before on a different level, and I would just say go down that road and then come back to council with whatever you think might be suggested, instead of like maybe putting staff through the process of investigating heritage sites. I would just almost suggest doing a bit of research. I mean, I would almost guarantee you that anybody that's investing in a property where somebody says, well, I'm going to make it a heritage site, those guys will run faster to the hills than you'd ever expect them to, because as you'll find out, it decreases the value of the property exponentially once it's a heritage site. So, and I don't think that's what these guys are going to do. And like I said before, our resolution's already taking it to the public. And I think the public will be quite happy with what this developer is suggesting for Stonehurst to be, which is to upgrade it, keep it intact, and never remove it from the property as part of his development. And we get to ensure that through the development process as council, right? And make sure the public is, but I think a heritage, like, I mean, I don't know. I'd say just do a little bit of research. I mean, and then come back. And if you still think that's the way to go, then I'd ask staff. But at this point in time, I think it would be a waste of time. That's just my own personal feelings. Waste of their time, not my time.
Councilor Diandrad, comment?
I mean, I particularly disagree, because I think it's important for council to be well informed, is to understand what possibilities, what options do we have that would satisfy both the developer as well, but conditions. And that's, I can do my research, but I might be limited. I think staff understand, and that's their role anyways, right? So, I mean, we can just agree with the owner and find out later that there are other practical ways or supported by legislation that we could preserve the site in the long term, because things change over time. So that's what I'm trying to understand, instead of I'm putting my time to make a research that might not even have some validity in a way. Bring back.
Councilor Kroll.
My understanding, and sort of leaning towards what Councillor Lumley is saying, in order to be able to legislate protection against a heritage building, it has to be designated. You can't just sort of say, that building and you can't do this, that, and the other thing without a designation. And once it has a designation, as Councillor Lumley said, then it's why you can buy a castle in Scotland for $100,000, because nobody wants to touch it because it's got a heritage classification, and anything you want to do with it is so restrictive that nobody wants to do it. And so I think you have to be very careful where you tread. We have the opportunity to work with the developer, and public is going to dictate, if they decide to paint the place, purple with pink polka dots. We've got control over that, but I think we have to be very careful that there are buildings in this town I would love to see with heritage designations, but they come with it's a double-edged sword. And I think we have to be very careful of what we thrust upon a property owner.
Can I suggest we hold off on this conversation until we get into the actual development and look at it? Because I think that's probably the right time for us to have this conversation, is when we have a zoning application development permit process in front of us, because we're looking at form and character and the protection of the site at that time. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I believe I read that in the earlier reports that we read on this project, is that the intention of the owner was to preserve the site. And maybe we can put something more strongly in the development permit in a covenant that ensures that the character of the building be preserved. But I don't think any of us know enough about heritage and protecting heritage, other than to say that I understand that without the agreement of the owner, that nothing would happen. So, Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that's a good approach, what you've recommended. I think it would be best to get the proposal in front of council to see the details about what their proposal is about. The preservation of Stonehurst is what they are proposing. That may turn into a community amenity contribution discussion, and that may be a route that council may want to take to take it a step further through the heritage preservation bylaw. But I think the first step is to receive a development application to get the details before council, before considering the next steps.
I'm sure that they will hear a lot from the public as they go through the public information process about the importance of preserving Stonehurst in part of the process, and that if that is not a priority, I doubt this will proceed very far as a project. So with the absence of somebody seconding your motion, Councilor D'Andrade, that the motion will fail.
Understand.
Okay. And I don't see a seconder, so are we agreed at this point in time we can move on? Okay, but thank you. It was a good discussion, and it also shows where council priorities are. That yes, let's do it, but not at the sacrifice of Stonehurst or the sacrifice of heritage in the community. That will become a priority that we will be reminded of as we go through the process, and that the owners will be reminded of that. And in the interim, there are documents on the ministry websites about heritage preservation, and it might not be a bad idea that we all look at them and be aware of what we can and cannot ask in terms of heritage.
Exactly.
I think it's important to know that. So if anybody comes up with that penultimate document, please share it around. Okay. Councilor D'Andrade.
My purpose of asking is staff to investigate was exactly to avoid that we go in a route to find out later. So if we have a sense of possibilities, we can make informed decisions. That was the goal.
Thank you. Okay, that was an easy one. Let's go on now to the next one, which is the short-term rental bylaw. And we are 20 minutes to 8, so that's 20 minutes to 9. So, Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor. So this report brings back an updated recommendation since the September 1st staff report, as the housing needs assessment has now been received by council, which may influence council's decision or the public opinion on the regulations of short-term rentals and the bylaws before us. Because of the receipt of the housing needs assessment, staff are recommending scheduling a second public hearing. As a reminder, changing use or density does trigger a requirement to hold a second public hearing. The report speaks to, the report circles back to a report that was presented in December 2019 about regulating unhosted short-term rentals. And it was put off until the receipt of the Sunshine Coast Housing Needs Assessment. So this report is also seeking some direction from council on whether you wish to proceed with the bylaw as written and schedule a second public hearing, or look for amendments to the bylaw, bring it back, and then schedule a second public hearing. So staff's recommendation in this report is to proceed with the bylaws as written and schedule a second public hearing for, I think it's October 21st. At 5:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilors, what is your wish? Councilor Lumley.
I think it needs more discussion. I'd like to bring it back before another hearing.
Yeah. Would you like to go back to the Planning and Development Committee?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So motion to return, would somebody choose to second that to refer it back to Planning and Development Committee? Councilor Ladwig. I don't think we need to have a lot of discussion about it now, take up the rest of the evening. So perhaps we could simply vote on that motion if everybody's satisfied with that, that we are going to see it again. All in favor of returning to the Planning and Development Committee? Thank you. That's the easiest thing. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so we will come back, and Councilor D'Andrade, go ahead.
Just a clarification. So unhosted, we will also come back for the planning committee, because I understand that staff is looking at direction of council.
The whole bylaw is going to come back to.
As well, so both will come back for a full discussion.
Yes, the whole bylaw will come back. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, no, but addressing unhosted as well, because the director of planning just said that they are seeking direction from council. I just want to clarify that we will be discussing the unhosted situation as well on the planning and development.
That's correct. Yes. Yes. We'll discuss the bylaw and all things dealing with the short-term rentals. Yeah. Okay. Director of Planning.
Yeah, I was just going to say we'll put the same report that was on this agenda on the PDC agenda, so council can pick up the conversation there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, and 8.3, Director of Finance, property valuation for insurance purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep this brief. So the purpose of this report is to request council's authority to expense funds to obtain an up-to-date valuation of the town's buildings for property insurance purposes. And I didn't include this in the original financial plan this year because I wasn't sure at that time whether it would be able to be done within 2020, but looks like we're able to do that. So the most recent valuation was conducted in 2014, and although we do update the values every year based on inflation, it's recommended that we do an up-to-date valuation every 5 years. So it's a little past due on that. The funding is in place. There's 14,000 set aside in reserves for this purpose that are available. And it also qualifies for the MIABC risk management grant. So the remainder of the funding will come from there. So there's no funding issues there. And so also then, if authorized, I would incorporate it into a amended financial plan to be brought to council later this fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council, the recommendation authorize a budget of $17,000 for a property appraisal for insurance purposes. Moved by Councilor Kroll, second by Councilor Ladwig. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. It's approved. Thank you. Thank you very much, Director of Finance. Okay.
Thank you.
Council reports. There has been a great deal happening. I'm not sure how much we want to shorten our council reports tonight. Or we just plow through so that I'll give council a chance. I have a list of things I wanted to bring up. So I will go, and just to it's important, I think, for the record that we acknowledge things that have been going on and happening. And the big one this past period was Union BC Municipalities. 2 weeks ago, we had a series of meetings, both requested by ourselves and requested by FCRD or the District of Sechelt that we participated in. During that week, I think there was I know I participated in 21 separate meetings in the week, of which I think 16 of them were UBCM related. And I think the important ones that I wanted to bring attention from our own perspective in terms of our meeting with staff and with ministers. Number one was the meeting we had with the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations. And this had to do with the protection of the aquifer. And it really was bringing their attention to an application that was made by the town in 2014 for an aquifer designation for the town, and challenging the ministry as to why it had not been responded to or acted upon. And and I'll just read you a short excerpt that from 2009 to 2013, the town of Gibson conducted an aquifer mapping study to develop a better understanding of aquifer boundaries, hydraulic properties, and aquifer recharge and discharge. This study identified 3 significant aquifer recharge mechanisms for the watershed that includes mountain block recharge, creek recharge, and recharge to alluvium deposits. An update to that work is expected in 2021. During the same period, we've noted there's been increased industrial, commercial, and residential development occurring within the regional district, which is over the aquifer recharge areas mapped. This includes gravel mining, cement mixing and batch plant, large manufacturing home park, and other commercial operations and residential construction, all of which are unserviced by sewer. Additional logging is planned for the area. We made it very clear to the ministry and to the SCRD who accompanied us that this was not satisfactory, that the town does not have, I mean, we can do all we can do in our bylaws to protect the aquifer and to ensure that development that it goes on the aquifer does not endanger the aquifer. But our bylaws do not apply to development that goes on above us. And we made it very clear that as a town, one of our priorities is to protect the aquifer. We talked about the proceeding of the Water Act. We also talked about, and I say I'm inclined as council, we have discussed up to and including a boundary expansion that would take in the aquifer recharge area to give us control over and to ensure that proper development is done up there and proper management of development and lands are done over our aquifer. It got attention. I know the CAO has had subsequent follow-up. There's a lot happening in respect of our aquifer right now, and in respect to the aquifer recharge area. The wells that are proposed for the Grantham's landing area, wells are proposed for Area E, all are within our aquifer recharge area and our aquifer area. And the ministry, I think, has finally recognized that they owe a duty of responsibility to us, and even dealing with the regional district. So that I know the CAOs had subsequent conversations with them, looking for a water sustainability plan that would ensure that we have decision-making authority and responsibility over this area. But as I say, I think that as a council, and I know our council is committed to protecting the aquifer, and if we have to even go through a boundary expansion process to take in the areas that could legitimately affect us so that we have control over it, I know our council is prepared to move in that direction. And so we had a pretty frank conversation with the ministry, and who fumbled around a bit and finally asked we forward the application for 2014 to them. because they said, oh, well, we've been looking for that. Could you send us a copy? So we did. And that conversation will be ongoing in concert with the regional district, because the decisions that they are making today have the potential to affect our ability to develop, our ability to have access to water. Now, we are going to do a further update of the water study that was done a few years ago in 2021. That's scheduled so that we'll understand just what has been happening and how much water is being drawn and how that affects us, or whether or not there's even more water than we knew. But those are important things as our council, as you have pointed out, relative to that, to development in the town, our future, our ability to sustain development going forward. CAO, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that in terms of the conversations you've had.
Oh, not much more to add, Mr. Mayor. It's within the, we're not sure what form of tenure the province will ultimately agree to. At the moment, we're considering continuing to provide them additional information. And as you said, the other meetings that we're part of raised issues around drainage as well, which affects us and affects our neighbors in area E and F. And so we're talking about water in general and the protection of the aquifer, or other issues that go with it. And so the next step is for them to review what we've sent them, and then expecting to set up a meeting afterwards for starting to work on that process as well.
Thank you. Another meeting that we had was with the Ministry of Housing and BC Housing, and that had to do with the supportive housing project. And we put several questions to them, and we are expecting to have further meetings with them. Unfortunately, elections get in the way sometimes, and so that we will be meeting with them in November. But we want to look at how BC Housing is going to ensure that the residents who go into supportive housing in Gibsons have a valid and real opportunity to be successful. You know, what mechanism supports are they putting in place? It's not sufficient, in my view, just to provide housing if you don't provide other supports in the municipality and the community for them. And how are they going to be providing those supports? What kind of team is coming around them to help them? Are they doing any baseline data studies right now to understand what kind of issues we have in the community relative to opioid use or crime and things like that, so that we can measure change? Is that something that, in my view, that's something they should be doing if they're going to be putting the impact of any development they're putting in our community? So we put several questions to them, and including asking about the occupancy, which I understand they're moving forward with at this time in terms of looking at occupancy. So we will continue to have discussions with them. We did prepare briefing notes on these, and anybody who doesn't have a copy or wishes to have a copy, they are available. And just contact the office and we'll provide that information to you. We had a meeting also with the RCMP, with Police Services Branch, discussing the RCMP and our role in 2022. The magic date is April 1st, 2022. If we meet if we exceed 5,000 population in the next census, April 1st, 2022 is when we'll become responsible for our policing. We looked at, I attended a regional meeting with the RCMP, again in a Zoom meeting, Lower Mainland Detachment. Primary things there's quite a bit of information generated by that, but it's primarily dealt with the Surrey changeover, which has now become a political topic in the election. But a lot of concern among municipal departments and RCMP detachments about what's happening in Surrey and the impact that that's going to have on their areas. We attended a meeting of community foundations, and they just put out a report called Vital Exploration. And this is a report, a joint report done by the community foundations for Whistler, Sunshine Coast, Squamish, Bowen Island, and West Vancouver. So this was a conference call last week. So if anybody doesn't have a copy of that report, didn't receive it, let me know and I'll make sure you get a copy. And quite interesting to see all the comparables and how we match up with them. I had a meeting today with Cap University this afternoon and referred them to this report as well, because that's all the areas that they service, and looking at the measures that they took on that. We did a walk on Sharman Creek, Councilor D'Andrade and I, with the stream keepers last week, and just to see what the health of the creek was, and work with stream keepers. At UBCM, Council of the Town of Gibsons received an excellence award for our eco assets. And I was going to actually play that clip for you, but I won't take that time tonight. But that clip, I believe, is on our website. The award being presented and the reasons, so that you can have a look at that. And it's important and very gratifying to be recognized by our peers in the province for the work that our staff are doing here in Gibsons, and very well deserved. And in fact, I had a little side bet with the Mayor of Sechelt, that because they were up for a similar award, and that I said, well, if they win, they would get something from the 101, and if we win, it was agreed we get something from Brickers. So we got a case of Brickers that staff have control over, and will end up be a raffle at a Christmas function somewhere. So that if you want to get a case of Brickers, there's something there for you. But that Mayor Seegers, you exchange that sort of thing, and that was nicely delivered to my house. Arrived here 100% intact, I can assure you. UBCM had several resolutions went through. I won't dwell on them now, but there were several associated with policing, which are important to us, and especially for a new community starting off with policing. Finally, not quite finally, but let council know there's a food bank drive going on, so that if you have a chance to take a look and get involved in the food bank drive currently, for the fall food bank drive in Sunshine Coast. And I did contact Chair Pratt about the status of Gibson Pool. I haven't heard anything. We've had a lot of angst created over the not having access to that pool. A lot of concern, both not only from seniors, but from young people as well. And I really, truly hope that the regional district is hearing that. They receive a copy of everything that we receive, that I receive, as do you. And you can see the letters that we're getting. Councillor Kroll, you were going to comment on the pool?
Just to let you know, Mayor Beamish, that the recreation situation is on the agenda with the board of the regional district on Thursday.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, oh, sorry, Councillor Wienard.
I just wanted to say, with the reopening of the pool, I personally know, and just in the community, there are a lot of youth who are working as lifeguards, and they depend on working there to get paid. So just wanted to put that out.
Well, we'll try to get them gainful employment. But thank you, Council. It's 4 minutes to 9 o'clock. Could I have a resolution to carry on this meeting? And I'm going to suggest we go to 10 o'clock. Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade to 10 o'clock. All in favor? Has to be unanimous. Okay, yes, I see it. I see it. It's there. Okay, thank you. Listen, I started meeting at 1 o'clock this afternoon, so I know you've all been busy too. So anyway, that's all I had in terms of the updates. And I just wanted to appreciate the opportunity to go through some of those things, because they do represent a lot of time and a lot of effort by a lot of people. But I was very pleased that we won that Eco Asset Award. And I think in fact, I don't know how many of you saw this document here called Plan Healthy Natural Environments, put out by the province. And in this document here, they refer to two examples. If I could just take a second, since we've got lots of time now. One is One is on tree protection bylaw. You want to take a look at that. City of Duncan adopted this tree protection bylaw in 2015 and have just amended it to update requiring that in addition to existing requirement for listed trees, the council for approval, Public Works approved requirement for pruning significant trees. So very much like our bylaw, or our bylaw is very much like their bylaw at Duncan. And under development, it says that example is reflected in their municipal natural asset strategy. The town of Gibson's definition of capital projects and municipal infrastructure is growing. Accordingly, council amended the DCC to be able to collect capital costs under the Local Government Act for improvements to natural areas that work effectively as drainage projects and common stormwater services. So that's a report by the province, and again, where the town is again mentioned as an example, a leader in this particular area. So this was just out healthy natural environments. If you don't have a copy, let me know. I'll get you a copy. Okay, that's all I had to report on. Who else wants to report on all the exciting things? Councillor Kroll.
Just to keep it very brief, in light of the election, I would just rely on staff just to keep their feet to the flame once the election results are in, because a number of the ministers we talked to in the conversations aren't even running for this next term. So, you know, we may be starting at ground zero again on some of these projects. So just to, you know, that we can keep working with staff just to keep feet to the flame once the election results are in.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Dean Drad. Yeah.
Very briefly, I participated on the Ocean Watch. Well, now they are named Action Committee just for a while. And there's a new Ocean Watch publication just launched in this year. So that was really cool. And we are working and really unifying all the strategic directions and priorities, both from the strategic directions from the group and from the report. So all municipalities can follow the same priorities, right? So that's really exciting. And just an announcement that October 23rd, it's their forum and will be online. And perhaps Mayor Beamish will participate.
Yeah, thank you. See, yeah. Okay. Seeing no other reports coming forward, we'll go to Councillor Correspondence. And we have already received the correspondence. Does anybody wish to bring anything forward? Councillor Dean Drad.
Thanks, Mayor Beamish. There's a letter just subsequent of a previous letter about traffic calming measures for Glass 4 Road. And I would like just perhaps staff just to brief what's happening, because I remember at the time we were going to take some measurements. So where are we?
Glassford Road staff, is there anything moving forward on that, or is it at this time, or?
I'm waiting for, oh, there we go. There's a video. Sorry. We haven't yet taken any action on that. Still hoping to perhaps get some information out to the residents along that route, possibly here in Q4.
Pardon me, I cannot hear.
There's also North Fletcher, Mr. Newman, is anything being done there on traffic calming?
So the tender for that for the Gibsons Way bike lane is going to be going out later this month, and we're going to be looking at the budgets because we hope to be able to include the paving and the creation of the bike lanes down North Fletcher at the same time, and included in that work would be traffic calming as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, good. Okay. Councillor Dean Drad, you had another follow-up?
Sorry, I couldn't understand. The reception wasn't clear. So I could understand what the Director of Infrastructure talked about the Glassford and Gower Point Road. I think the suggestion was about bringing the road barriers, but I couldn't understand. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we're planning on approaching the public or the residents along Glassford Road to see what their support is. We had talked about, from at a staff level, we've talked about bringing it in on a temporary basis if the decision was to barricade off the road, and to do exactly that, is to place temporary barricades to measure the success of it.
Okay, thank you.
Catch me that time?
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Okay. Okay, hearing nothing else on council correspondence, go on to Matt Carver's Coast Guard Co-op letter, request for letter of support. And the recommendation is that be received, and I would suggest we would want to write a letter of support for the proposal. Council, what's your wishes? So this is on page 117 of your agenda. And right on behalf of the Coast Guard to request a letter of support of the town of Gibsons applying for a 29,000 capacity building grant from Investment Readiness Program to support market expansion analysis and a marketing plan to increase membership and revenue to guide expansion and the long-term modernize our fleet. Councillor Kroll?
There was a deadline for this letter. The
We
grant
need a letter
application,
by October the
2nd.
2nd at the latest, and deadline is October. He may need it by the October the 8th, but if we could have it 2nd, but if we could have it to him prior to the 8th, I think we should try. Just a letter of support for their proposal. Yeah. They can always email, they can always add a letter of support to an application, even after they submitted it.
I'll support.
Yeah. Councillor Ladwig? Yeah. You move, we write a letter of support? Yeah. Councillor Ladwig, Councillor D'Andrade, support, seconded. All in favor? Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So if we could make that a priority to the CAO to draft a letter of support and get that back to them. And with apologies for the delay, but it's the way our system has to work.
Will do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to bylaws. And we've got, let's see, I'll find the page up, should be on here. Pull my pages apart. Okay. Oh, sorry, correspondence. Yeah, okay, we got that. Oh, I know what's happened. I know what's happened. Throw that paper away. Okay. Bylaws. Okay, the recommendation, the bylaw, building bylaw number 1284, recommendation of 1284 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Ladwig, second by Councillor Kroll. All in favor of adoption? Thank you. Approved. Anti-noise bylaw. That the report be received and that the anti-noise bylaw be given first, second, and third reading. Director of Planning, do you want to present anything in the report, or is there anything you want to bring forward?
Maybe Mr. bylaw before that.
Oh, sorry, did I miss something?
Yeah, 11.2 was skipped, which is the amendment.
Oh, the bill, sorry, the bylaw enforcement, sorry, bylaw enforcement amendment bylaw recommended 11/25/11/2020 be adopted. And this is the one we missed the other day. So somebody move that. Councillor Ladwig, Councillor Kroll, all in favor of adoption? Thank you. Okay, sorry, now we're on to the bylaw, anti-noise bylaw. Sorry.
Thank you.
Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor. So this report presents an updated anti-noise bylaw as well as the public input submissions received by email. While staff recognize the difficulties in appeasing everyone's noise preferences, aligning better with the neighboring local government is an approach in obtaining regional consistency, and therefore staff are recommending that council passes the first 3 readings of this bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council, what's your wish? First of all, do you want to move for second and third reading, anybody? Councillor Kroll. Seconded by Councillor Ladwig. Discussion now. Is there any discussion around seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of first, second, third reading? Thank you. Opposed? Seeing none, it's adopted. Thank you. Bylaw notice enforcement, tree bylaw preservation, and that bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 1125 2020 be adopted. Councillor Lumley moved it. Councillor Kroll seconded it. Discussion. Director Planning, Corporate
Sorry,
Officer.
Sorry, Mayor, another item was missed.
Jump over 'em. Okay, well, we got a motion on this one. Let's deal with this motion. It's on the table. I'll go back, sorry. So any further discussion on the tree bylaw preservation? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, so we'll go back. So I don't know how I missed that. Bylaw notice enforcement bylaw 112509 anti-noise, and again that this bylaw notice enforcement bylaw be given first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor D'Andrade. Discussion. All in favor? Thank you. That passes. And we've already done that one. Rates and fees and charges amendment bylaw number 119619, that the rates and fees be adopted. The bylaw be adopted. On favor, Councillor Lumley, Councillor Kroll, all in favor. Okay, thank you. That's adopted. Official community plan amendment bylaw for Davis Popular Road, that be given third reading. This was the subject of the public hearing you had earlier today. Someone like to move third reading? Councillor Ladwig, Councillor Lumley, discussion. Okay. I'm going to say that I stand opposed to this bylaw and to the rezoning. I was never really was strong on this to begin with. I do recall that when we did the initial application by an individual in the neighborhood who wanted to make a change on their designation, that I thought that was fair. I think that it does appear to me that, and then there were people who came forward at that time, and I specifically recall who it was that came forward, and in addition supported our staff initiative that said that it should be part of a broader rezoning as opposed to an individual rezoning. I still prefer the individual approach that individuals can come forward and make changes to their property as opposed to our imposing a broader rezoning. I don't think that people understand, mind you, the fact that somebody can buy 2 buildings and apply to put an apartment building up next door to them as opposed to a triplex, but that's up to them. I do believe that there was enough opposition to this for my purpose, but I won't speak up that because I will vote against this myself. So, but don't let that color your judgment. You were all there, you all heard, you all participated. Councillor Ladwig.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Beamish. I have to agree. I feel like sometimes you can't win when you're on council. You know, council gets criticized for spot zoning when they spot zone, and then they get criticized for trying to do more of a neighborhood plan when we go broader than one project. So it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Having said that, I support this rezoning and OCP amendment because I do believe that our community needs more infill density as opposed to big fill density. And that I think triplexes and duplexes and those sorts of things provide options on the housing continuum that we're lacking in our community. And I think this neighborhood is a good fit for that. So it's not that I haven't heard the people living in that neighborhood, but I too agree that I feel like, I think we could have perhaps done a better job of communicating it perhaps, but I still feel that this is good for the community. So I'm going to move forward with my recommendation.
Councillor Kroll, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I sort of agree with Councillor Lumley. You know, I can just see the reaction from the community now if someone were to parcel 4 properties and put up a 8-story building. You know, you're in one sense, you're trying to protect a neighborhood, and suddenly, you know, 6 or 8 story building goes up, which is possible under the OCP. The other thing, in light of, you know, the report we received on housing, I think this is a unique opportunity by creating infill, allowing the form and character of buildings to sort of remain as they are, but increase the rental capacity of them. And there are a lot of rental units in there, and it may be part of the problem with notices going out to the residences that, you know, tenants just didn't respond, whereas the owners may not actually be resident. Yes, you know, we're being criticized for the time we hold public hearings. That's something we may need to address, because the number of people who attended the public hearing today was sort of, you know, a bit alarming. So I agree from your point, Mayor Beamish, that it's awkward. We've heard certain voices on this issue, but I don't think we've heard the whole thing. And I would hate to see, you know, this neighborhood change drastically by suddenly a 6 or 8 story high rise going in there. Not to say it would, but the potential is there for it. So I think staff have responded to trying to create a need with, you know, when we look how we had 3 or 4 council meetings with just that one application. So at least this gives the community and the neighborhood the potential of doing something positive without it being terribly invasive. So I'm in support of it.
Councilor Lumley?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I've said it before, and obviously David's echoed it, that on one hand, you're protecting people. And part of it too is like the whole process, you know, it's like every time somebody wants to rezone and do all this, it's like, I mean, just for council and staff, it's, I mean, if you're just gonna, you know, if you're gonna, obviously if you're gonna do it for one person, you're gonna do it for all of them. I mean, you're not gonna say, well, we did it for your neighbor, but we're not allowing you. I mean, at that point, it just becomes people fitting within the FSR and some sort of character dimensions, and then it's a good go. And if a few garden suites come out of it, or somebody builds a duplex, excuse me, and then it's a win based on what we read today in our housing assessment thing. So for me, it just, at the end of the day, it just becomes like an easier process, less cumbersome, less red tape to accomplish, you know, yeah, the infill, what we need. So anyway, yeah, I support it.
Councilor Diandrad?
Thanks, Mayor Beamish. I think I agree with you, Mayor, in a sense that my feeling is that people didn't understand what's happening. Even people who usually understand very well what's going on. And I think it's the difficult of perhaps the process, perhaps the way the public hearing comes with this bylaw is intimidating. I understand that we had COVID, but I really would have appreciated if we had, prior to the public hearing, really had informed the public and really showed the benefits. Because if I look at the feedback, I'm more inclined to say, no, I don't support. At the same time, I understand that this bylaw, it will protect the people. So in this regard, I would support the amendment. But I have to say, the process, I think the public does, until today, we got people that have no clue what was going on in a way. They thought that was to increase density. So I really suggest, if we are going forward, and at the same time, what we had today was another example that was incredible, because we communicated well with the public. We took time to show the public what it is. And frankly, it is hard for people to understand the bylaws. Some citizens, they do understand, they're very familiar with the OCP, but a regular person might not be. So I urge that we take this in consideration, because the feedback that I felt, that people are like, really concerned, even with increasing taxes and all this, but at the same time, they are more fragile with the current bylaw, I understand. So I would support, but with some hesitance with the process.
Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed, and I stand opposed still. But I would support applicants coming forward individually, and we deal with them individually. And until there's such momentum in the community that we see it necessary to do something different, but at this stage in time, I'm comfortable. Thank you. And the next one is the zoning amendment bylaw 106554 for Davis Road, Poplar Lane. And again, given third reading, someone like to move that? Councillor Kroll. Councillor Ladwig, you can't do one without the other. In further discussion, all in favor? Okay, and I'll vote in favor now because the other one passed, and I'm not going to obstruct the process so that we'll be consistent going forward. So, okay, new business, Gospel Rock Multi-Use Trail. And the reason I put this on the agenda is number one is I think the resolution that we passed early this spring was lost due to COVID and all the other things going on. And the fact that there was no action going on with the developer. And secondly, that I think it's important that we basically, when we come to an agreement on what is a protected area, we should maintain the protection of that area. And that includes whether or not we would like to see a trail go through it or not. I think when this trail was conceived of, when it was put in the bylaw, because this was the covenant was a appendix to the bylaw that was passed through zoning. Electric bikes were just a whisper. Now everybody's got an electric bike, and you can drive through there at speed without slowing down. And cars have to aren't passing; you're passing the cars. But I would like to see safety through that corridor. I would really like to see that School Road has a sign on it, car, bike, car. So you stay in line and you go through that way. There's no reason why, in my view, we couldn't do a similar thing down there with a slower speed limit and manage that and keep the trail off the property. But that being said, the reason why I did this through asking for a report is I don't know what the mechanism is at this stage in time to amend that covenant that was part of the zoning process, because it was, we may have to, whether or not staff will tell us that we have to come back and do another hearing on it, or whether it's just a matter of amending the covenant that was an appendix to the zoning bylaw. So I think that there is information we need to know, and I don't think it's just a matter of a resolution to say don't proceed or don't take it out. If it was that easy, that would be easy to do. But I would like to hear from staff in short order as to what's needed to, in my view, to take the trail off the map and to not proceed, and to keep a conservation area as a conservation area. And that's what I'm asking for, is a report from staff on what the next steps are to accomplish that. And at the same time is to ensure that that no work relative to the trail proceed until we have clarification on that. So I see the Director of Infrastructure joined us. So Dave, if you'd like to, before I give Councillor Lumley a chance.
Yes, certainly, Mayor Beamish. So the trail that is in question was put in the development agreement largely because at the time and still now we do not have the information in regards to calming traffic successfully through that corridor and be able to accommodate cyclists and pedestrians safely. And I know there's all sorts of people that have all sorts of ideas how that could happen, but fact is we need an engineered design. then we would report back to council saying, okay, this is the degree of traffic calming that we can achieve. This is the level of success that we can expect. These are the measures to be put in place. And then council can weigh up the, make a decision with all the information on the table. And we're, as the Director of Planning mentioned, we're still in process. The improvements to Gower Point Road is part of the first phase of Gospel Rock. So that's really why we have not reported back to council yet, is because we don't have all the information yet. As I say, our desire was to make sure that council had all the necessary information in order to make an informed decision about this item.
Thank you. Yeah. Councilor Lumley, you had your hand up.
Yeah, if there's one thing, anybody that moved to this town the same time I did, what you got hit over the head and the hammer was how much the community wanted to protect Gospel Rock and the green space. So I know that we requested a report already, which we didn't get, which is fine. I don't even think we need a report. I just think that the council was happy with the TLC and SCCA working with the developer to come to an agreement on a covenant. I believe that they were wanting to administer the covenant. And if this covenant that they come to an agreement with the developer doesn't include a multi-purpose trail, then so be it. I think that, sometimes I think the town just got to get out of the way. It's, you know what, if somebody can't bike ride through there, so be it. It's like, if that's up to like people that are concerned with the environment, it's a designated green space. It has to be protected. We've put these people in charge of making sure that it is protected, and the developer's in agreement. Like this developer might be the greatest developer on the face of the earth, and like to maybe try and force something down both sides' throats just so somebody can ride a bike. I just don't agree with that at all. I think the town's just got to get out of the way, let them get the covenant done. They can administer the covenant. If it's a walking trail, fine. Whatever is good for that space, whatever the covenant can be agreed to preserve it ecologically, everything else, then that's what should be done. And I just think we should just let them do it, and we should agree to it. We should give them the authority to go ahead and come to that agreement. And of course you're going to want to sign off on it, but we should sign off on what they want, not what like we want to like put into some sort of development. It's just going down the wrong path. So for me, I just say the town just got to get out of the way, let these guys get the job done and get the covenant, and let's move forward.
Councilor Dean Drad next, and Councilor Ladwig.
Thank you. Well said, Councillor Lumley. I think there's enough evidence from both the Minister of Environment and Environment Canada that this is a sensitive ecosystem. It's classified as in peril or in peril and vulnerable, depending on the community you're looking. This is a over 30 years old war. It was fully understand when we started negotiating with the developer, all the groups, that the developer was fully sympathetic with the request of the community and preserving this area. So the fact, I think I agree with Councilor Lumley to debate the merits of this area. It doesn't have any fundament because the merits have already been established by 2 levels of government, plus the will of the community and these 2 organizations involved. So to stall this process, to verify the possible, yes, I would love to have a trail, multi-trail, yes, but we will find another area, another path. I agree. I would like to suggest that we move the recommendations that the SCCA proposed, and then we get it done, because I hear about this covenant for years now. There's no reason why.
It may not be as easy. I mean, that's all I'm saying. And the recommendation I put before you, that I put on the table, was that what's the process? This was a covenant adopted by a zoning bylaw. What is the process to not proceed? Do we have to amend it? That's all I'm saying. Do we have to amend the covenant and take it out? Do we have to go back to a process because it exists right now? And so that's all. Director of Planning. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. So there is a process. This is a development agreement between the town and property owner. So we would need to communicate with the property owner. But I'm hearing an implication that the town is getting in the way or slowing down this process. And I assure you that we're not slowing down the process at all. There are conditions of subdivision approval. And as part of those conditions, they need to get their development permits in place. They need to get their covenants in place. They need to secure the affordable housing. They need to design the trail alignments according to that schedule. We need a lot of detail. They need to identify a location design, maintenance provision for a public washroom. So there is a list of requirements that the developer must meet as a condition of subdivision approval. And there is no order in which this list has to be met. It's all of these requirements have to be met as a condition of subdivision approval. So the developer needs to come to us with a proposal addressing all of these items. And once we have all of them in front of us and they all speak to each other and make sense, at that point, we would finalize the subdivision. But we don't have all that information in front of us. So we are getting many inquiries about where we are in the development permit process, why we haven't registered that conservation covenant. It's because we need to make sure that everything that's presented makes sense before we authorize it. Yeah. So I just want to make sure that council understands that we are following our process and yeah.
Director, to remove this particular trail from the covenant though, do we have to amend the covenant?
I mean, in the covenant, it speaks to the design specs, I believe. I've got it in front of me here. It calls it a type 2 trail. So the Director of Infrastructure Services might be able to speak to what that means. The alignment of the trail is conceptual at this stage. The idea was to have a transportation corridor that goes towards Secret Beach. We don't have the road design yet. So the idea is if we can avoid a trail through that area because we have a better road plan, we absolutely would bring that to council. But we need, ultimately, what we need is more detailed information before we can make any decisions or before we can come to council with a recommended approach. But the idea was to maintain this as a conservation area, as a protected area, with a trail network, with a connection network through it to go from Upper Gibsons to Lower Gibsons and to connect like the Franklin Road area to Secret Beach.
Yeah, the upper lower is not the one that's in contention. It's the parallel one to the Gower Point Road that the Land Trust and Conservation Association's objecting to. And is there anything would be required to be done to remove that trail from the covenant as it stands?
Yeah, so if council wishes to remove that trail, then you would pass the resolution as proposed. We would begin the conversations with the developer. I mean, that was negotiated as a community amenity. So if they don't have to build it, they might be happy about that. I don't know what that means for the road design, but that's where the Director of Infrastructure is sort of hesitant to make any changes before we have the information in front of us.
Councillor Ladwig, I'll go to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Bush. This is just a no-brainer for me. I mean, after all the years of controversy that's gone into developing this site, the last thing I want to see is us blow this whole thing up over a trail. So if this is such a sticking point, then remove it. And I agree with Councillor Lumley that maybe this just isn't an area where people can ride a bike, if that worst case scenario. I just feel like there's been way too much work, way too much effort that's gone into this for way too long for us to get held up at this point on something like this.
And that's the purpose of my resolution there, is that what's the process for getting rid of it? That's all I'm saying. Is it amending the covenant? Is it simply a decision by council saying, don't proceed with the trail? Is there something else we need to do? Is there, as you say, it's a community amenity. Can we substitute that for another community amenity? Do we need to go in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm fine with your motions. I'm also fine with the Sunshine Coast Conservation Society's motions. They're all fine with me. So whatever people want to go with, works for me.
Councilor Diandrat?
I think it's important to secure the covenant, because in my understanding, it could be that I fully don't understand, but the negotiation was for the covenant to preserve the area. And the only issue is the multi-use trail. The moment we remove, they can also proceed with their negotiation, because they have the land conservancy that they're in the process of probably signing the agreements to secure funding for this land. So I don't think it's right to stall in their process as well. So I'm happy with the resolutions that the Sunshine Coast Conservation, because they are asking to remove, they maintain the second, the same one that you have proposed. And then further, that council directs staff to work with TLC, the CCA, and the Block 7 property owner to finalize and register a conservation covenant over the area designated as green space prior to issuing development permits that would allow disturbance of lands within 10 meters of the area designated of green space. And after that, I believe the town can take all the time to negotiate the amenities with the development, but I don't see why one.
Sure, yeah. Director of Planning, you're back.
Thank you, Mayor. So no, that's not the correct process. The process is outlined in the development agreement. It doesn't require a conservation covenant to be registered before development permits. There's a list of what's requirement as a condition of subdivision approval. So they need to meet all those conditions before we would approve the subdivision. And the registration of the conservation covenant is a piece of that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't requested as a condition of zoning approval. So at this point, we're waiting for the subdivision approval, and that is at the developer's timeline.
Councilor Kroll, you haven't spoken, but I see your hand up.
Well, I was just to the Director of Planning, but we can eliminate this trail from the project, correct?
So the trail is in the development agreement as a conceptual trail. So the concept was that there would be a connection point. So with council passing this resolution, we can begin that process to communicate with the owner and get the covenant amended. But there is a process to eliminate it.
Yeah, and that's all I was asking in the resolution is, what's the process? Let's get on with it. Not Councilor Lumley.
Well, why don't we just include those motions in the whole process then? If like council, from what I hear, if council wants to remove the trail, then in the recommendations, it shouldn't be to review and report on the removal of the trail. It would just be to remove the trail, you know? And, you'd commit to improving Gower Point Road safety. And then you'd commit to hopefully the TLC and the SCCA, you know, and the developer and the town completing the covenant. I mean, I don't get why we wouldn't just move, like just make those motions right now instead of like asking staff to go back. I get it. There's a process. I think what I hear from all the council is like, hey, just tell staff to go do those things. Yeah. Like instead of coming back with a report, it's going to take time. And then, you know, it's like, then staff just says it again. They go, okay, let's like waste another meeting telling you exactly what we told you in the last meeting.
And that's fine. If you're satisfied that we know enough now to be able to tell staff to proceed, then fine. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't like to pass a resolution not knowing the implications of it myself personally. I don't know what the implications of that are, but if it's just do it, then just do it. Yeah.
I'll move, Mayor Beamish, that we drop your recommendations and include all the recommendations presented by the SCCA.
You're going to have to put them on the table. I don't have them in front of me. Yeah.
I can put it.
Yeah. Corporate officer, do you have those recommendations?
Oh, do you want me to read them out?
Yeah.
They weren't part of the agenda package, so I'll read them verbatim if council is happy with them. That council directs staff to remove the proposed multi-use trail, Trail C, from the Gospel Rock Park Plan map as requested by the Land Conservancy, TLC, and the Sunshine Coast Conservation Association, SCCA, and that staff identify and implement alternative measures required to improve bicycle and pedestrian safety on Gower Point Road through the Gospel Rock area, including reducing the speed limit, improving signage, and implementing traffic calming. And further, that council direct staff to work with TLC, the SCCA, and Block 7 property owner to finalize and register a conservation covenant over the area designated as green space prior to issuing development permits that would allow disturbance of lands within 10 meters of the area designated as green space.
Okay, Councillor Ladwig, I see your hand up.
Is with regard to the last motion, isn't that what the director of planning has told us is already the process? Like, they're not going to get their development permit until there's a covenant in place anyways. There's just a number of things that have to get into place before they get their development permit.
Yeah.
Is that not correct?
I have difficulty myself having a third-party director of staff in terms of resolutions. I have no problem telling staff to remove the trail and then look at other things, but in terms of the overall process, director of planning.
No, I'm seeking clarity right now. I'm asking the director of planning through you, Mayor Beamish.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So the development permits are required as a condition of subdivision approval. So is the protection of the conservation area. They are two separate items that are required. So the Conservation Association is wanting to get the conservation covenant registered first. But in terms of the subdivision approval process, they're both required. So right now we're going through the DP process, but we would have to resurrect this conversation about the conservation covenant.
Okay, so once again, just for clarity, I need to have it in front of me while it's very difficult to do this without this in front of me. So is it not that council directs staff to work with TLC, Block 7 property owners? So is the registration of the conservation covenant not issued, over the area designated as green space? Is it not issued prior to issuing the development permit?
No.
There's other things, but is that not done prior?
No, it's not. And I'm not sure what this means, the 10-meter area of designated as green space. I'm not sure what that means, but what's being asked here is that council direct our process to change it, to make the conservation covenant happen first. But I'm midway through the DP process already, and there are a number of requirements. So
Leslie Ann, would you have a problem with the first and second resolutions there?
the first, I wouldn't say staff remove the proposed multi-use trail. I would say staff begin conversations with the owner to amend the covenant for the purpose of removing the trail, because it's an agreement. So two people have to agree to it to sign it. And that staff identify and implement alternative measures required to improve bicycle and pedestrian safety on Gower Point Road. Yes, we were working on that anyway, so that's no problem. And then the third one, I would not recommend proceeding with that because it's all required as part of subdivision approval.
Councillor Giedrad.
Mayor Beamish, I have difficult understanding how the town made an agreement with the development about an area that was subject to a 30.
Let's not go there, okay? I mean, that was 5 years ago, and I don't understand. None of us around this table were there, including, I don't know, Leslie Ann was even there. So that let's just deal with the issue that's before us. There's a motion on the table. My problem with the motion is that the third part of it directs our staff to do things out of process that they normally do. And I'm not comfortable with that. I don't mind directing staff to work with the developer to remove the trail. And that was the whole intention of this. So what's the process? What do we have to do to get rid of that trail? That's all I said in this resolution. And let's move on with that. And then let's look at alternative for traffic calming along the Gower Point Road without a trail. And I'm fine with that. But obviously we have to work with it. So I mean, but going into areas that even the director of planning is uncertain of at this point in time, what the 10 meters is and stuff like that. I think we were allowing people who are not at this table to direct their staff on things. And we don't understand it. So whatever council decided in the past, Councillor Kroll.
I agree with what you're proposing, and I think everyone's looking to get rid of the trail and, still keep, the system moving forward. One of the things, and I would almost like to ask the Director of Infrastructure, has it ever been looked at making Gower Point one way? Because, saying traffic calming, reducing a speed limit to 20 kilometers an hour, who's going to enforce it? Nobody enforces the speed limit there now. Reducing it is, going to be sort of a bone of contention. But I'm just wondering, has it ever been considered making Gower Point one way?
Short answer is yes. It's a collector road, however, and so that's a fairly well-used road. So that is going to be a fairly huge undertaking to determine whether or not that is an appropriate thing to be doing. I agree, signage is going to do absolutely nothing, and we've been waiting for the design for the traffic calming in order to physically slow traffic down, and we have not got that yet. And that design has to be completed again before subdivision is signed off as well. So we're just so early in the process. I know it doesn't feel like it, but we are so early in the process of the of this actual development that we're getting ahead of ourselves here. That is going to be coming. We don't have the information. The developer is driving this process. He cannot move forward on his development until he has met the requirements in the agreement that were hammered out over many months, many years ago. That traffic calming is actually in the agreement, saying that they have to improve that safety. But we have not seen that yet.
Okay, Council, where are we? Councillor Lumley?
I'll move 1 and 2, and then we can drop 3. I'm fine with that.
Councillor Ladwig? You second that? Discussion, Councillor D'Andrade?
I would like I'm just concerned that, is there a possibility to get at least some idea of a timeline for this covenant? Because I think the organizations have been respect to these organizations that they are trying to assemble something, it has been going on for many, many years. And I'm just afraid that will be another long process. Is there any way?
Leslie Ann?
Yes, so once council passes this resolution, we're going to begin the conversations of amending that the covenant. And at that time, we can ask for a timeline for when they expect to bring forward a covenant for signatures. But I can't answer that right now because I don't know what their timeline is.
Corporate Officer, I see you're here with us.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Mayor, if you're going with the first motion as written or as recommended by the Director of Planning.
I would go with the Director of Planning, and that is to, as I recall, to negotiate the change with the developer,
To begin conversation with the landowner, yes.
landowner. Councillor Lumley?
That was not the motion.
Okay.
It was the first two motions of three motions that the corporate officer read. We did hear back from the Director of Planning, but the two motions that I just moved were the first two motions that the corporate officer read, and we're dropping the third one.
What you heard from the corporate officer was that because it's an agreement with the landowner, we have to have his agreement to make the change.
Okay,
Councillor Ladwig?
I think from what I heard, or anyway.
Director of Planning, can you come back to that? And
the developer doesn't want it.
So I think I amended it to say that council directs staff to begin conversations with the property owner for the purpose of removing, and then the rest as follows, the proposed multi-use trail. Or
Councillor Ladwig.
Good, I second that. Is that not the one that you moved, Councillor Lumley? You're on mute.
You're on mute, yeah.
I guess a bit of semantics, but I guess so, sure. Like you can begin conversations with them, but for all intents and purposes, the developer, from what I understand, didn't want the multi-purpose trail in the first place. So I guess your conversations will be really fast and easy. So you won't have to begin the conversation, you can just end it. But sure, if that's the way you want to word it, then sure, yeah.
Leslie Ann?
we could also add that staff report back on next steps or something like that to bring it back to the council table.
I think the purpose of the motion is to remove the trail. I mean, beginning discussions, I mean, I don't know. I hate those words because and then it goes back to what Anne Marie's saying, like, what's the timeline? Like, what's beginning discussions? Like, you know, it's almost, if council wants, if the conservatory people in the SCCA want the trail removed, the landlord wants the trail removed. Like I said, I don't know. It'd be better, I guess, if you could word it like that's what council wants, would be even better. But I guess beginning discussions, I guess, to the end of removing the trail with the developer, however you want to say it. But I think what I heard from council here is that council doesn't want the trail either. So, I mean, I don't know what more you can say, like, you know, so.
Okay. Where are we, corporate officer?
I was about to ask you, Mr. Mayor. I think where we are is the first motion as written, except with the change suggested by the Director of Planning, which adds in to begin discussions with the property owner with the purpose of, and then continuing on removing the trail as written.
When you got two parties to a signed agreement, can one party arbitrarily say, here's the change you're going to make? Or do you enter into it and say, we'd like to make this change? I mean, it is semantics, but it is one of, rather than arbitration, it's one of arbitrarily, it's one of, let's do it. And that's what I understand that the director of planning is suggesting. Is we simply enter in that discussion with the, because they've got to sign off on it. And so that we've all got to sign it. So, and I'm fine with that. I mean, the objective is to remove the trail. The process of removing the trail is we're going to have to get the agreement from the property owner to amend the agreement. Councillor Kroll, you really want to come in there? Yeah.
All I would want to suggest is the cost of the trail is probably a fairly significant dollar value to the developer. So as Councillor Lumley said, he's probably delighted to get rid of it. On the flip side of it, should we be seeking some other community amenity in lieu of it?
Yeah, I would rather not worry about a negotiation of it right now, because that's going to take even longer. If we can achieve the objective of removing the trail, I think that's probably what we should do. But are you agreement with the Councillor Lumley and Councillor Ladwig with the proposed wording from Director of Planning? Okay. Councillor Lumley, are you in agreement?
Yeah, just as long as it's quite clear that council during this discussion wants the trail removed. That's all. As long as it's well understood. It's not like council's going, oh, hey, would you mind like asking, or maybe in the passing drop the, hey, would you like to remove the trail? I think you have to go into it saying, hey, listen, council wants to remove the trail, and they want to get the covenant done as quickly as possible. So I mean, maybe I'm just being over paranoid, but anyway.
Director of Planning.
I can assure council that we'll make it clear.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, if everybody's agreed on what the resolution is, can we vote on the resolution?
I moved it.
All in favor, you moved it, Councillor Ladwig seconded it. All in favor of the resolution? Okay, so as far as we're concerned, as a council, the trail is removed. Thank you. Okay, and we're fast approaching 10 o'clock. We have another meeting yet to have, and there are some important things on that agenda. It's not clear from the agenda, but it's short informational things. So I'm going to suggest that at this time of night, we suspend inquiries and we have a motion to close, and we go on to our next meeting. It's 10 o'clock. Council, someone want to make a motion to close? No, you want to stay here? So we'll go on to inquiries. Inquiries next. So we'll go to the corporate officer, and we'll need a motion to extend. No. Where do you want to go?
Extended it. Extend to like 10:15.
10:15, yep.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
That Councillor Kroll seconded it. All in favor, 10:15. Thank you. So inquiries, corporate officer, who do we have?
I'll just move them over, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'll ask anybody who would wish to ask an inquiry of council to please use the raise the hand feature at the bottom of the screen, and I'll move you over in order. Thank you.
Okay, Suzanne Singer.
Hi, thanks, council. I'll be as quick as I can because I know your meeting is tight. I just want to say thank you for speaking up for what this community has fought for so long to make sure we protect that green space. I feel really appreciative, and so that's wonderful. And my inquiry is, there is an item on the agenda of correspondence, and it is from another group that I'm with, not the SCCA, but the JBC Society. And it's about those peer review reports for the George. So I guess the question is, why doesn't the town respond when we send you know, when we send those letters, could you at least sort of reply to us and let us know what your process might be to consider that really serious item?
We will respond.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Other inquiries? Mr. Bowman, have you got you're still on mute?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you very much. I followed your conversation with interest, and I see how you struggled with it, and I appreciate that. Brings back a lot of memories of a lot of sort of struggles, but it's all very good to work these things through. And I'll just add one thing that's of primary importance for the developer. This is the message we're getting from him. Is one aspect. He doesn't want to have a fight with the town. No way. He's built his brand around this high level of environmental protection, and he doesn't want to back out. He doesn't feel hard done by, and what I've learned about him is he knows what he's doing, and we like to think we know what we're doing. But he's very respectful, and I like him quite a bit. So just thank you very much. I appreciate your efforts tonight.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah. Others? Okay, I'm seeing no Mr. Stowe. Yeah. Okay, you should be okay now, David.
Yeah, you were talking about public art earlier in the evening, and since I stayed this late, I just want to add that there's a sculpture at the end of the breakwater. It's wooden, a carved fish that says Gibsons, BC.
We actually have that in our inventory. Yeah. Do you know who did it?
Is that one of the ones that you were already saying needed some loving?
No, right now it's in our inventory, but we're trying to find out who actually did that carving, if we know, because it does need some love. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Anybody else?
Not seeing any further raised hands, Mr. Mayor.
So now I would take a motion to close the meeting and be closed in accordance with section 91G IM of the community charter. That being, and 91A, potential litigation affecting municipality, receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege and matters under another enactment that's such the public may be executed from the meeting. Excluded from the meeting, not executed. Okay. Councillor Ledwig, thank you. Councillor Dandrad, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. I'll see you on the next channel. Yeah. Okay.
Is she sending us something?